going somewhere. Hold on.
Hello,
Small
everyone.
technical difficulty.
Welcome to Open Mic.
Welcome to Open Mic. Open Mic UK. Today we had a special event happening. Unfortunately, Sebastien had to cancel at the last minute due to family reasoning. So he will reschedule. We will have him on the show another time. But in the meantime, we thought, you're all waiting for this show to happen. We'll take it on with our experiences, and we'll join in between myself, Suzi, and Tanis to give you an awesome show like we usually do. So welcome, everyone. And okay, where we are, I can't even remember how to do things. I'm just... I'm off.
It's okay. We got your back there. We're good.
I'm back on. I'm Ramzi, and my co-host from Ireland, Suzi, and from Ottawa, Tanis, and we're here to present to you Open Mic UK. So one of the topics that we were discussing before we got on was remote viewing. And that was something interesting that Sebastien Martin discusses or wrote about in his book. One experience that he had at the beginning where a friend left something on the nightstand, and he went in, and it was supposed to be one item. It was 3 items, and he was able to see it, and he described the 3 of them. So I thought we can use our experiences to discuss remote viewing. And I know, Suzi, you've met somebody last year, I think it was in November, at the Science and Consciousness in Yorkshire.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, like I've been doing a lot of kind of research myself on remote viewing and or RV, as it's affectionately known by regulars. And it's really simple and it really works. And I believe that everybody can do it. And so I think going into an experiment with that mindset helps, And so when we were at the Science and Consciousness conference last year in Broughton Sanctuary in Yorkshire, there was an opportunity for a group of 60 people to do an experiment where we were split in half. And so, I chose to pair up with somebody I never met. I didn't know anything about them. And so that it was really neutral, that your mind can't kind of get involved with, trying to figure out the answer. And the results were quite remarkable. And I think they I'd been researching and reading about remote viewing for the last 10 years. I've always been interested in it. But to get involved in that experiment really sort of reinvigorated my interest, So I know that on the Spirit Cafe this month, we've an ongoing remote viewing experiment going on at the moment. And it's fascinating. It's fascinating how, with very little experience, and they say there's such a thing as beginner's luck, people are getting incredible results. So if you don't know what remote viewing is, it's basically having a target, which could be a location, it could be an object, it could be, a number of different things, a person, for example, an organization maybe. And then you have the person who's the viewer. And basically there's no doing of it, really. You just become relaxed, ideally. There's no sort of prerequisite kind of practices or meditation or anything other than, I suppose, a willingness to do it and a pen and paper. And, just to record the information, have the intention to go in, record the information. But the key with recording the information is not to try to name what it is, not trying to, get a clear kind of answer. It's really about going in and observing the qualities, and keep going back over that information. And as soon as your left brain starts giving you sort of, it's Stone Circle in Ireland, or it's, Donald Trump, or whatever the thing is, you write that down, you center yourself back in, you go back in again. So you can record that information too, but you can you're not really engaging with that. It's not really about writing down the right answer. And the more incorrect you feel like you are, probably more correct you are, if that's makes any sense. But I found it really interesting how, for me, when I agreed to do it, the experience was almost like looking through the eyes of the person who was going to the location. You know, I saw lots of things moving, and I feel like now in hindsight, that was him moving into the forest where he was going to do the forest bathing to find whatever the object he was going to put into the field for me to receive. And because he looked at an object that wasn't really defined, it was a very abstract, just piece of, organic matter that was lying on the forest floor. My drawings and information made no sense. I thought I was like, I've definitely failed this. But it was really interesting then, because, when we came back together and we, analyzed the data and the information, it was kind of eerily close, So that's why I'm really interested, because I'm also interested, I suppose, in what is it good for? Like, what else can we use it for? So yeah, I know, Tanis, you've some remote viewing experiences too, don't you?
Yeah, I actually use it quite a bit.
Okay.
So with COVID, this is what happened for COVID with me, because all of a sudden, I can't see people in person and I'm having to do a lot of remote work. And I know that energy healing can go remote and all of that, but I didn't think that I could actually do things like house clearings and whatnot remotely.
Wow.
And then I had a friend that in England, actually, who was struggling with something. And I'm like, well, let me see if I can tune in. And so I tuned in and was like, oh, and that's there and that's there. And yeah, we got to take care of that. And I was describing it to him while I was on the Zoom with him. Actually, I think it was even just phone that I was on with him. And he was like, yeah, okay, yeah, that's where it is. Yeah, that's where I'm having trouble. So it became a thing that I was like, oh, all right, let's play with this a little bit more. And so then I started doing other things as well. And I had another friend in BC, who British Columbia in Canada. So I'm on pretty much the other end of the country from her. And it was a client. This one really sort of cemented it for me, because this was a client who had come to see me. She used to live in my city. So we had done a local one. And she was having trouble in her new apartment there. So she said, can we take a look at this and see if we can do something? And I'm like, okay, I don't know quite how this works, but let's give it a go. And so for her, I ended up tapping in and again was able to sort of pinpoint where things were in the apartment. For both of those, though, I was more focused probably on the other frequencies, the other dimensions in those spaces instead of the physical.
Yeah.
So that's the other aspect there. We can look at the different layers of the dimensions, like the dimensional frequencies or layers in the different locations. And sometimes they're not exactly the same, right, as what you would see if you were actually in the space. But it doesn't mean they're wrong. It just means you're looking at it in a different frequency. And so these two cases, though, I was actually seeing the physical as well. And for her, I was so honored, because we had a whole thing she was in Nanaimo, and we had some residential schools that had been discovered. There was some not so great stuff that happened out there. And so I was actually able to cross over 4 of the children from the residential schools who were hanging around. So I was super honored to be able to help with that process. And so that's one way that I've been using it is doing the clearings. But I mean, I do regular healings as well on people. And instead of it just being energy, once I realized I was doing that, I was really literally going and standing in front of the person, wherever they are, to do like the ceremonial healings, because I do like cord cuttings and stuff like that with the Celtic shamanic. And so I would go and actually stand in front of them and do it there. And they would feel. And so, all of these instances, I had great feedback, but from the person that was there, they were actually able to, they were sensitive, so they were able to give me the feedback to keep trying to do more. So now it's quite common for me to do it. Physical one, I would say another example of how I've used it is I've had people come to me numerous times about, I can't find this item in my home. So they describe the item to me, and then all of a sudden I can just sort of see where it is. And I say, okay, yeah, go here, and it's there, sort of thing. So that's another kind of fun way to use the remote viewing. That one combines, of course, intuition as well, but.
Cool.
Yeah, and intuition has a lot to play with the with remote viewing.
Absolutely.
And visualization.
Mm-hmm.
Those two things are crucial for remote viewing. While Suzi and I were doing our mediumship course, I was asked if we were asked to look into the teacher's stuff and ask and find out stuff about her. You know, it was like very, very open, and so it was a bit eerie. That was like my first major experience to see something like that. I was even walking in her entrance and looking for something that I couldn't see because it wasn't there.
Right.
I was looking for children and she did not have them. So I was looking, I go, there must be pictures over here. But then I found I had this guilt of invading somebody's privacy, although it was open for us to do that. You know, it just felt odd. But
well, and I think that's a good point, Ramzi, is that we do have to keep that in mind when we're talking about remote viewing, right?
Yeah.
There is an ethical framework around this. It's not something that you just go and do willy-nilly. Just like if you're doing healing work for somebody, you always ask their permission, right? Because otherwise they'll feel you. And that's the same with remote viewing.
Yeah.
People will feel it and they won't know what's happening. So it's very uncomfortable. And if you start going places you're not supposed to, you know, they're going to take that ability away.
Good point.
Yes, well, it all depends on how you see things, because there are people that are trained to do things for espionage purposes or for whatever purposes. So it all depends. But from my experience with remote viewing is, one, you have to be centered, well-centered. And I know, and I'm sure when he gets on open mic next time when we reschedule Sebastien, is he says he comes out of his body. There is that type of a projection into a space. Now, it could be a physical space or a different realm of that space, but there's some kind of a projection. Like when I, how am I going to explain it? You lie down at night and you've been on a beach in Mexico or in Cuba or whatever it is, and you say, I just want to go there. You literally lift yourself and you are on that beach. You feel it. You smell the salty air. You feel the heat from the sun. That you do, and that's the type of projection that you do with yourself into the space that you're looking at. And I think remote viewing is similar to that. So if you can exercise, do a lot of exercises, because that's what makes it easier. And like Suzi said, we're doing it on the Spirit Cafe. We taught it last time. We had some hits and misses, of course. I had a miss, but the funny part is that both myself and the sitter, we both got into the same space, a kitchen, but none of us was in the kitchen.
So you followed each other and you ended up somewhere different.
Exactly. So we were somewhere else in this realm where it was a kitchen, and we both saw ourselves in there. And I actually drew a kitchen table and the table cover, but there was not. She was in her living room and I'm in my dining room, and but it was funny how things happen.
Yeah.
But I think, Ramzi, for me, in the context of that experiment, we probably needed to set it up a bit better in terms of like not anchoring yourself to a location when it came into your awareness. You know, it's much more about when you actually looked at your drawings and we looked at the data you gathered, it was like there were like cubes and boxes and then your left brain decided it was the kitchen, like, or your imagination. Like, so I think with remote viewing and with training in that, it's really about gathering data as it is without naming it, without trying to know what or where it is,
Yeah.
but build up the information from kind of, you know, shapes, colors, textures, you know, sounds, smells, all of the senses, and you're writing down those kind of adjectives, or, you know, making little small sketches. And as soon as you've gathered some data, go back into it again, like trusting exactly what you get the first time without trying to make it into a, you know, a pretty picture, or, you know, a final kind of answer. So it was interesting for me, because when I was working with somebody the last time, I just found that they weren't stabilizing. Like, when I was trying to tune into what they were doing, there was just too many different things. And when we talked it through then, and with the feedback, she had decided to include everything that was going on around her, you know, what was going on in the sky, like, you know, birds and planes and motorcycles going by. You know, there were a lot of other things, and so they're all kind of like moving targets. Whereas with remote viewing, I feel like it's like target specific, like, you know, what Tanis was saying, looking for that particular object, you know, looking for whatever that location, you know. So I think it's a kind of refinement of that, you know. So whereas like today for me, it was really interesting. I was on a call last week with somebody in Scotland, and she had a few questions, you know, and I was in the car, so I didn't really have time to fully tune in for her. We were just chatting, and I said, look, what came to me was like, I'll tune in next week. Someday next week, I'll sit down and I'll actually tune in, and if I get something, I'll let you know. I actually forgot all about that. I even had said that to her. And this morning, and at the end of my own meditation practice, it just came to me. You've got to tune in for this woman. And I obviously had her full permission, you know, because she had said, go ahead. And it was just so kind of spontaneous. I gathered the information. I find the remote viewing has helped me kind of just accept the information, exactly what comes in, without trying to figure it out. So I just made a few sketches and wrote a few words down. It looked like complete gobbledygook, honestly, on the on the piece of paper. But I messaged her, and I delivered the message. I said, listen, I'm like the DHL package delivery guy. This is what's in your package. I'm not here to interpret it for you. You interpret it as you wish. So I dropped in the package and like gave her this information, and it was quite it was a fair bit of information, let's say. It was more psychic information. And she's been leaving me voice messages through the day, because she wrote it down after she listened to it. And as she's going through her day, she's messaging me saying, oh my gosh, like the woman I was ordering the beads from that was her name, you know, and all these different things. Like, and I thought, wow. So I think the remote viewing could really help us to do that sort of work, because that woman then, like, we're going to talk in about 2 weeks' time again, but she was saying to me that it's really kind of helping her kind of take, you know, steps in the direction that she's been kind of leaning towards anyway, but she was kind of holding back, or, you know, a bit reticent. So I was like, well, that's definitely a bonus for doing this, you know. So that was my experience today, which I found very interesting, and it was very encouraging, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, Kaylee.
Hey, Kaylee.
Yes, you're late. We're gonna put you on a tardiness list.
She's late for good reason, I hear. So
I'm sure.
congratulations is in order.
Yes, I saw that. Congrats.
Yes. Yeah.
So for those of you who just joined us, we were talking about remote viewing. So Tanis, any other techniques or ways that you've used in the past that help people through remote viewing, other than healing, which I know healing, energy healing has a lot to do with remote viewing. We literally, I don't know how to explain that, but we see, and sometimes there's intuition in it that we know what it is, and then we move energies around, and we talk to the person to help them out. So that there's energy healing has I guess a combination of both twisted together. I'm not sure, along with psychic information. This is just like
it all just goes together, really does.
It's a bundle.
I think another way that I've been using it lately is to go and visit ETs, actually. So I will often go and have meetings with them. I'll end up in the control deck with Commander Ashtar, or I'll end up in a meeting room with a committee or something, and I'll be like, oh, how did I get here? Okay. Sometimes they're pulling me there, and then other times it's like, okay, I want to talk to Commander Ashtar, and I just end up wherever he is at that time. So in those ones, it's kind of like more person driven, I guess, than place. I've also done some work with the hybrid children, because I have a hybrid daughter. So I have gone to the ship to meet her and spend time with her. And then I've been taking people to their hybrid daughters or hybrid sons to meet them, because they're kind of all on this one ship. So that's something I've been called to lately. That was kind of new in the last little bit. But that, again, is kind of the remote viewing, right? I'm basically journeying to go and go somewhere specific. So that's remote. Some of the other remote viewing, I guess, that I've been doing too. So journey work is really remote viewing, really.
Yeah.
Many times, if you're going somewhere specific when you're journeying. I think the only difference between even like the shamanic journey work and what we've been talking about with the remote viewing is really that the location that you're going to is in that different dimensional frequency. So it's still kind of remote viewing. It's just that it's not the physical that we might think, right? We're just going to a space in a different timeline or a different dimensional frequency.
Can I ask you, Tanis? I know, Ramzi, it looked like you were just about to
No,
ask.
that's fine. That's fine. Go ahead.
So when you're referring to it in that context, are you it's not really remote viewing, because you're not guessing, you're not working out a target. Are you going specifically to something, like intentionally, like, so it's
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So if I'm going specifically to see Commander Ashtar, my target is him, not necessarily where he is, because I don't necessarily know where he is. But if I want to speak to him, my target is him. So basically I kind of tune into the energy of wherever it is I'm trying to go. And then I go there. Because
okay.
Yeah.
I feel like that's more like astral kind of projection, like, isn't it? Is that,
well, it is, but
interchangeable, those terms? I don't know.
I think for the most part they are. Like, maybe the astral travel is more that you're viewing the other dimensions, and your remote viewing is maybe a little bit more the physical dimensions. I don't know. But for me, the mechanism is pretty much the same when I do them. It's really, you set your intention for where you're going and you go.
Yeah.
So,
pretty much.
so they could be pretty interchangeable. I think that the astral travel thing is definitely how you learn to do. Like, for me, I learned how to do the astral travel, and that's how I was able to start doing the remote viewing. That was the order that I learned them in. And so then you don't have for me anyway, I didn't have the pressure of having to find something in another location when I first astral traveled. So it was more like the journey work. And then it kind of evolved for me into being able to see more in the physical.
I think the vocabulary, or the terminology of remote viewing was sort of how the psychics that were working on those big research experiments, had to kind of refine the languaging a little bit to appeal to, the bodies that were sponsoring them or that were, giving them the funding. And so they had to kind of find alternative ways for the same thing. I think that, like, I've heard that in a few podcasts that I've listened to. And I suppose to get the funding to really do the research, they had to have some sort of, I suppose, they had to deliver some sort of goods, I guess, at the end, which is why they were doing those sort of targets, in other countries and whatever. So,
well, they had to make it sciencey.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And so it's more of a science term.
It is really, yeah. But then there's, like, when I listen to, and I've spoken to and talked to, I had a few interviews with, like, professional remote viewers, like, they're doing it for corporations, they're doing it for trading, they're doing it for financial, speculation, things like that. They do it for missing people, if there's missing persons, missing pets. Like, there's all sorts of different applications, I suppose, that professional remote viewers are using it for. For me, it's a psychic ability, really. Like, it's as you said, it's the same technique.
It really is.
Just how you kind of formulate your intention as you begin, really, and how you choose to kind of experience the data or the gather the information.
So another example comes to mind when you bring that up is so this is why I don't watch the news all that often. So I was sitting there and the news was on, and there was a missing girl out in Alberta one time. And all of a sudden I was like in this forest, and I was like bound with my hands behind my back. Like, that's what I was seeing. And I was feeling all of that stuff. So I knew that she was unfortunately unalive. And it was because I could feel all of where she was and all of that stuff, and I was seeing it. And so that was kind of a spontaneous one. It wasn't one that I kind of chose to do, but I was kind of brought there. So, and then a day later, that's what they found out, which she was in a woods bound. So that's another way that it happens, which is kind of, that just shows you how easily it can happen, though, right? Because all I did was my mind was there because I was thinking about the news and what was on the news and how sad that was. And all of a sudden I'm there and I'm like, oh, okay, wait a minute. Just because I thought about it, I didn't really ask to be here.
Yeah.
But I thought about it. And of course, there was emotion. So that's also the key, right? To have the emotion to want to do it or to feel it. I mean, that's often the case with a lot of psychic abilities. Just like manifesting, we can't manifest unless we actually feel what it's like to have it or to be there in that frequency, right? And so that's basically what happened. I think I was sitting there and I was feeling for the little girl because I'm an empath and a physical empath. So all of a sudden I was feeling where she was at and stuff, and could see the location. Now, that doesn't happen to me often, probably by my choice, because I realized that it could happen that easily. And that's not something that I choose to sort of step into, but it's definitely, once you start doing it, or that was probably one of my cues, that I should be doing it more, because I think that happened like just before the COVID thing. And so there was, of course, they work in mysterious ways. And so you get hints and cues and stuff.
You have to practice. Once you practice, you don't do it. It's just done.
Yeah, it just happens.
It's just done. Okay, I don't practice that often, but with Sebastian's book, for example, I was reading a chapter and I knew exactly what happened before I got to read it. I was there. I was on a ship. I saw what he saw. Not 100% detailed to what was written in the book, but I knew everything that happened. It was kind of eerie because you're not trying to do that. I wasn't trying, let me see the spaceship myself. No. I was reading a book and then I stopped reading because I couldn't see anything anymore. And then when I woke up and I continued reading and I go, oh my God, I know this part. I saw it like 2 seconds ago. and the picture was vivid in my mind. And I'm not going to spoil everything because he's going to be on the show. We're going to talk about it later on. But it's funny how we could see these things. And this week, Suzi and I, we meditated to see how we're going to proceed with today's episode.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I was taken, projected, whatever it is. There are multiple terms to it. Is that I saw him with a lot of ETs around him. Like he was, if you want to call it, protected by the extraterrestrial, and they're all around him. You felt something about him that there was unease, and I'm wondering if you saw what he felt this morning.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm trying to link things, and I go, oh, maybe that's what Suzi saw. Or she felt it. She goes, well, there's some unease coming up, and today happened. So well, we don't go looking for it, fishing for it, running after it. It just, once you center yourself, it just happened. You get projected into other spaces to get the information required for whatever you're doing at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're an archaeologist and you want to see everything around the globe, and then you go start digging. But
the other aspect of this, as you brought up, Ramzi, is really there is no time and space. So really, you just remote viewed what had happened because it's happening now too. So you can just pop into that scenario, past or future, right? Doesn't really matter. We can pop into whatever scenario we focus on. It's just harder to focus on stuff in the future because we don't always know what's happening. So, but the past stuff, that's what we can do. Like I've gone back and done healing work on things in my childhood that needed to be taken care of. And I would actually go back there and heal it with my inner child there, or do it as a child, but bring my consciousness back to actually do that sort of healing. So it doesn't really matter if it's like present moment or not, because it all is, which is pretty cool.
I know, even the future, like when Suzi saw the future or felt the future, what is happening, it was also in the now.
Yeah, exactly. It's simultaneously occurring, whether it's past, present, or future. It's all ongoing together. So, but I think you can kind of just shift your focus gently, like as you said, Tanis, like making a conscious effort to go back to, a time when you were a kid or something like that, when something happened. And it can be like, I do this kind of more spontaneously in a practice that I call like time travel, time machine. And I allow the intelligence to take me to whatever is relevant that would, influence something that's happening in this moment. You know what I mean? So anything that's kind of back there. So we'd just go back, and I've done it with bigger groups and individuals and myself. It's always fascinating how something always shows up. And it could be something quite banal, or, it's not always like a major thing, but it could be just a small thing that is, you're just back there and you're just going, as you said, you're bearing witness to it as your evolved self, as this consciousness. And you kind of, like, I always see like that you are reintegrating that part and retrieving it. And and then I usually will go from there. Once I've integrated that past, I project into a future experience, and sometimes I'll ask for a year or a date or something, just to see how does what I've done, the work that I've consciously done today, influence the future. And is there, some other information I can receive that will help guide my kind of, my choices and, decisions and things that are, direction that I'm going in today. Like, so, as you were talking there about the missing person, I remembered my first real experience, I guess, with remote viewing was about 10 years ago at the end of a silent retreat. There was a few hundred people at it, and one of the guests went missing, and nobody could find her. And nobody had seen her. And, it was a little disturbing because we were right on the beach. We were Oh my gosh, not Montreal. Gosh, I can't think of the name of the place. It's in California. Begins with M. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Monterey.
Monterey. Yes, that's it. And we were there, and so it's a big beach. So you would be worried about somebody like going missing around that area, like because it was a big area that they were all out looking for her. And I was having breakfast with somebody. We just started talking. We'd been silent for the entire time, so we'd done none of the kind of small talk of getting to know each other, But we felt very close to each other, everybody, because we just spent a very intense kind of week together. And one of the women at the table having breakfast with me, she said, "My guidance is telling me to say to you," which was me, "to go to that woman over there who's sitting on her own looking out the window, has nothing to do with us, because she's going to know where this lady is." And I was looking at her going, "All right, yeah, really?" I was like,
I've had a similar experience. Go ahead.
and I was like, right. All we were doing was meditating at this stage. Like, it was a meditation retreat. So, you'd do anything to help somebody who's missing, that's the nature of who we are. So I was like, okay, I'm totally willing to look like a crazy idiot or whatever. But I went over and I said, "Excuse me, I know we're just coming out of the silence, and, if you don't mind me," I was really kind of like, "Oh God, I hope it's okay to ask you this." But I said, "My friend over there said that you might be able to tune in. There's a woman that's missing and you might have some information about it." And she just looked at me and she was like, "Just give me a second." And she literally just gently turned a couple of inches to the right, and she just centered herself. And within about a minute, she came back and she said, "She's safe. She's fine. She's not going to be found right now, but she's going to be back here in this location by 6 p.m. tonight." And I was like, "What? Like, really?" And she gave no other information. And because I didn't know her, we didn't get involved in a whole chat. And I was like, I went back and I told the women, and it was like, wow. And that's exactly what happened. Like, I'm not going to give the rest of the story away because it's somebody's private experience, but that lady did end up back there at 6 p.m. And the woman who had prompted me to go and get that information, she happened to be on a shuttle back to the airport because she's actually Canadian, and they were flying back to Canada. Now that I think about it, she was going back to Toronto. And so she was on a shuttle to the airport with the woman who had kind of announced that this other woman was missing. And it was kind of coming up to 6 o'clock, and the woman's phone rang, and it was her friend. And she said, "Oh, I'm so," and she was apologizing, for causing, all of the distress that she did. And she said, "Look, I'm fine, and I'm literally just arriving back at the Asilomar." And the other girl messaged me and she told me that, and I was like, wow, like, that's very accurate.
Definitely. Yeah.
So that information was all available, at 9 a.m. that morning. So yeah, that was what I think. It was that direct experience set me off on a trajectory where I was like, I really want to know all about remote viewing, which is why I read all the books of Russell Targ and those guys. Like, so yeah, I think it's about having your own direct experience is what kind of really activates your curiosity, isn't it?
Well, and ultimately that activates your ability.
Yeah.
Because if you don't believe you can do it, then you won't.
True.
If you believe you can do it, you will.
Precisely.
So
yeah, I just saw that Edie had a comment on the comments there, and yeah, Edie, if you could put a photograph of where you were in the WhatsApp, that would be really interesting for me. I could look back on my drawings. So yeah, we're having a lot of fun with that. Yeah. Cool. Do you want to talk a bit, Ramzi, about how we're doing that kind of retro, the possibility of doing that retro causal remote viewing as well,
Oh, for the next Spirit Cafe?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what we're doing now is that each member of the cafe that joined last time and joining next week, not next week, in 2 weeks, is to pick an item within the house, within their space, take that item, sit with it, and put it in the field. So each one of us will pick an item. I picked an item. I sat with it for a while, and every now and then I look at it and I go, this is for the guys in the field so that they can see this, okay? I don't describe it. I don't say what it is. It's just there. Mm-hmm. And then what happens is that we all tune in at different times or whenever we have time to whoever had placed something in the field and try to pick it up. And then at the end of the month, we have a second, we have another cafe. So during that time, we'll pull up the papers and we'll see what everybody did. I think it's a good exercise and training in, because at the end of the day, like I said at the beginning, it's all about visualization. Mm-hmm. So you'll be able to see, you might see a color, you might see a shape. It could be I don't know, a box, a square, or whatever it is that comes out. Because while we were doing the exercise last time, I saw a right hand, just a hand, like there's something. And then I saw a right, some weird hand coming out this way kind of thing. But I couldn't figure out. I thought, oh, maybe the person has issues with their hand, some medical problem or something. I asked the person, and she goes, no, I don't know. And then she was looking in the room, and there's the Michelangelo, the Sistine Chapel picture of the two hands coming together between God and man. And I go, oh my God, it is close to that. But I didn't see it as a picture. I didn't see it in color. I just saw hands, different hands. But each one was at a different point. They weren't like this sort of for me to associate it to the picture, because I've seen the picture before. It's just like one and then the second one, and I go, oh, okay, maybe she has problems in both hands because the mind has to justify what you're seeing. Yeah. So we decided to do this exercise so that just let it be. There's nothing to justify. Whatever information you pick up from the field, put it on a piece of paper. We get together, and then we can show each other the pictures and see what we came up with.
So were those hands white in the actual?
In the painting itself?
Yeah. Are they white?
Yeah, they're whitish.
Yeah. Okay. Because that's what I was seeing. You were talking about it.
Yeah.
And I was seeing it, but I was seeing white hands like that.
Yeah.
It's a very white.
Yeah, and that's why I thought it was the ladies' hands. I go, oh my God. Do you have issues with your hands? Like, how are you going to tell a person, oh, do you have problems with your hand? And it's just like, and then she goes, no. And then we saw the painting.
Right.
So you get images and visions in different ways. And the funny part is that let's just see. All I'm getting is a vase right now in my mind. It won't go away. A vase.
There you go.
It's right in front of me.
Okay, so try this one then.
Have you got something there?
Mm-hmm. I'm looking at it. I'm just going to put it in the field.
We can invite everybody who's watching to do this.
Yes, please join in on this exercise.
Kaylee's one of my students, so it was primarily for her. See if she could get this one. But you can all join in, of course.
for those who are on Instagram and on YouTube, if you just joined us, Tanis has something in her hand. You can check it out in her field to see what she's holding, write it down, and then we'll unveil the mystery object.
The key is to observe that your mind is you can feel the part of your mind that is searching to try and come up with a right answer for this. And if you can quieten that part and just go back to any other kind of evidence that's kind of floating around, not trying to get your attention.
This one could be something you actually feel as well. So pay attention. So those of you that are clairsentient or empath, pay attention to what you're feeling with this as well, because that may also give you a clue.
Okay, we have somebody that put something in on Instagram. Let me go into, where are we? Oh, private chat.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have from Instagram, we have from YouTube.
Can you call out what they are? Because I can't see what those answers are. Is there
I put it in the private chat. You see it?
Oh, no.
Hold on.
Oh yeah, okay, I got that. It's funny.
Okay, feel into your colors a little more.
Did you tune in, Ramzi?
I picked up something quickly the minute she held it, but I'm not sure.
I'm the same. Yeah, I have something written. Do you want to share? Or is
I'm
there
putting you
more?
both on the spot. Like, I don't want to do that necessarily,
No.
but
I'm nothing to prove here. I like saying I have a pink crystal. That's what I wrote down. And then I wrote soft, and I got tissue. Then I started to feel like, oh, my left brain started going, I think she's holding a tissue. So yeah, that's me.
okay.
Yeah, I called it a rock,
Mm-hmm.
but on a light purple.
Okay.
And
What
Kaylee,
feeling do you get from it? What does it feel like to you?
Okay, let's do feelings. For me, it's heart-based, so it's heart-based. Maybe a healing item or something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm getting it like it's a clearing. It's like something that brings clarity or clearing.
Okay, so Kaylee got it stone cold, heart, brown, something earthy, keeping earth or earthy, and the last one, inviting.
Mm-hmm.
Our Instagram viewer, she said yellow crystal citrine.
Okay.
And now, could you unveil, because we're all
I can. So there were bits and pieces from each of these answers that is correct.
Oh wow, there you go.
So I would say that
red ceramic fish? No. Oh,
Red ceramic
you
fish?
start with a red ceramic.
Oh.
Well, it is fishy, kind of. And
It's a rose quartz flame, but if you look at the shape, that could be construed as a tissue,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And with Kaylee, she drew a heart because it activates the heart chakra because it's a rose quartz, which is all about heart,
Yeah.
right? And you all got the crystal.
Yeah.
And you had pink crystal too, right?
Yeah, I did. When I wrote pink crystal, I had like rose quartzes, but I was like, I didn't want to be that specific because I felt like I'd kind of be naming it then. So I pulled back from that information. Interesting. Really interesting. What does
And
it
you got the heart chakra too, Ramzi? So
yeah, I got
it's
the heart
very much a heart chakra thing.
and I kind of drew.
yeah, you did. Nice.
So it's close to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I asked, turn it around. I just want to see because I got this shape of.
Well, it's you saw the point, right?
Yeah.
And what's it used for, Tanis? Is it it's for clearing the heart? Is it, or for boosting? Yeah.
Well, both. I mean, I think that for me, this very much opens my heart chakra. But I have had my first experience with one of these was, yes, the green could be because of the heart chakra. That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Excellent.
The first time I had an experience with one of these, I was going through a bit of a rougher time, and I was fascinated with it, of course, because I was being drawn in. And so I went and picked it up and immediately started to cry.
Wow.
Because it was so powerful. And then I ended up with with Septarian, which I don't. Oh yes, I do have it here. So then somebody handed me a Septarian, and all of a sudden I stopped crying. So these two are quite powerful tools for heart healing for me, it seems. Nice. And so, but this one also invokes a lot of passion, right? Because flame is very much about passion, as is rose quartz. So passion, creativity, all sort of fall into that sort of flame. Nice. Inspiration, those things. So, yeah.
Yay.
So you guys all got it really in your own ways, right? You all got pieces of it.
It was an awesome exercise.
Yeah.
Very good. Very spontaneous. I love that.
Yeah, sorry. Put you all on the spot.
It was perfect, on the mark. It's beautiful. And we all loved it.
Awesome.
Of course, because we got it right.
Well, the thing is, what I think is, it's like there's all, like what Tana said, there's a piece of it in everybody because everybody is tuning in for that information. So it's like you could, like for remote viewing and even for doing psychic work, you really have to commit time to it. You have to stay with it.
Yeah.
And you have to keep coming back, and you have to start to observe when it's your left brain trying to, like when I was getting the soft tissue, I was like, no, so it's kind of knowing where the information's coming from, I think. And that's the training of it, really, isn't it?
But if you look at a tissue,
you
were seeing it, right?
Yeah.
You just didn't make sense of what you were seeing. If I was to hold a tissue and it was kind of crumply, maybe, then,
it's true.
It is somewhat like
I drew a line and then I wrote crystal. And then when you said the feeling, I was like, it makes you feel clearer.
Yeah, because it is a clearing stone for me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's really interesting. Do you want to play again? Well, I have loads of things around me here. I have to decide on something. Oh my God, where to begin with some of these objects? Okay, I have an object. I won't touch it because it might, but I have it there next to me. Just put it in front of me. Going to invite anybody else who's on the live, because I see we have a few people watching, just to tune in if they'd like to tune in. I've got an object that's near my desk and I have it in my hand now, and I'm just projecting it into the field. We're just playfully seeing, can we remote view these objects in the next couple of minutes.
Yeah. He came up with something.
Brown rough coat, little statue of a bear. Okay.
What I got was very different from that.
Do you want to go ahead?
Well, and I'm not sure if I'm thinking about what you have in your hand or something on your desk, but it was drawing my attention, whatever this was.
Okay.
Because I feel like it was, it's more geometrical,
Okay.
like cube-like, or something like that.
Okay.
It looked like a clear quartz cube, is what I was seeing,
Okay.
or a clear box, or something like cube.
Let's see who else. So we have Edie, who said it's brown, rough coat, little statue of a bear. We have dark, circular, or sphere. I don't have anything from Instagram. What I wrote, circular, dark in color. There is, I don't know if you call this a moonish. Where am I? And it's yellow. It's like a banana, and it's yellow in the middle or somewhere in it, kind of thing.
Yeah, I got something in the middle of this, whatever.
Yeah, there's something in the middle. You're smiling. So we all messed it up. I'm also half distracted at work. Yeah, we got that.
Yeah, that's why I don't know if I'm being drawn to something else in your room. I don't know that I'm.
There's a few things I could have chosen, I guess. But anything else? Will we go for it?
Let's go for.
Let's go. Let's just do
for
this. Yeah.
Oh, seashell.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
so none of us were close.
No.
Hang on. If you look at them, in the middle, there's this weird kind of, I don't know, shape, kind of.
Yeah, so that is kind of what we were seeing in the middle of something.
It has a circular shape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is some kind of a thing in the middle. We don't know what it is. I called it a banana, but
Well, that was just the reference point, though, right?
yeah.
But it's interesting because you did draw that shape, you
Yep.
know.
Yeah. It's similar.
But I'm laughing with Edie's brown rough coat, little statue of a bear. Down in my kitchen on the windowsill, I have this tiny little bear.
Oh, okay.
I was looking at him earlier on because I was like, gosh, I've had that little bear for a long, long time, you know. So I think Edie hangs out in my house because when we were doing the practice the last time, she saw my husband, and you know, she's really good at getting these. So I think she's down in the kitchen. You've got to come upstairs, Edie.
Now, do you have a clear box somewhere?
Cubes, yeah. I'll probably see it when we hang up, and I'll send you a picture, but not that I can kind of see for sure here. Hold on. No, that's kind of irregular shaped.
Because what I was seeing was like a square or a geometric thing that was on, and maybe I'm looking in the wrong dimension. I don't know.
Okay.
But it was like a square or a cube, and it had something in the center, and it was like clear quartz, or it could be like in this kind of an exercise, it could be like a clear box, you know, with something in the center of it, like inside the box.
Oh. Hold on. Well, it's not clear, but I just put this in my drawer. It had a ring in it. It's a box,
It is a box. Mhm.
but it's not clear. That's the only box that I can think of that I've recently had kind of in my hands. The other thing that I'm looking at is my mandala. There's a few mandalas here, which
Mhm.
are square around the outside. They're on the walls and stuff now, so I can't really take them down. But so it could be to do with that too.
Could be.
Yeah.
But we
Oh,
also have to
I think-
keep in mind. Go ahead.
They are telling me that it's like a different dimension.
Okay.
I
Very
was
So
good.
gonna
tune
say-
into a different dimension that you're on, in your room, and you might see that cube.
Okay.
I wasn't specific about what dimension I wanted to look at, and I look at all different dimensions a lot.
That's really interesting, though, where the information can be coming from, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, the field
Oh,
has
fascinating. Really? Okay, so look up in the corner of your room to your right side behind you.
Yeah. Behind me.
So behind you.
Behind
See if
me
you see-
on my right.
Oh, the
Yeah.
other side. Sorry, your left. Your left. It's that corner for me, but you're mirrored.
This one?
No, the
this
other side. The other side.
Yeah.
Corner. Into the other
Oh,
dimensions.
God. That's really interesting. I'll have to try and I've just seen it. Oh my God. Next to the bed, there's a cube. There is a cube. I'll show it to you if I can get out of the way. How do I show you that? Can you see it? It's
No.
over there.
No, there's too much light. Too much light.
Okay.
Oh, a little bit more to the side there, a little, and we might see it.
Can you see?
Adjust the angle slightly.
Yeah. See
Oh,
there.
yeah.
There's a cube
Oh,
there.
it's a cube. Yeah. And
It's
if
a
you look up,
perfect cube.
if you look up in the upper corner and you
Yeah.
adjust into a different frequency, you will see a crystal clear cube in the corner of the room.
Wow. Okay. And what do I do with that?
It's one of your devices that they gave you to work with the energies.
Oh, wow. Cool. I think I'm going to have to start tuning into that.
Yeah,
Very
you should.
excited.
Apparently it changes color. They're saying that it glows different colors depending on what you're doing. So.
Okay. I'm writing.
I should have been more specific in saying show me 3D.
It's interesting. Like for ages, I was looking around going, there's nothing cube here, apart from the outside of these mandalas and yantras. And then I just looked around me, and right in the corner is
A cube.
a perfect cube.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is that the field holds all the information. You might be holding a mouse, but like Kaylee was able to see that there's the vase in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a glass of water and a little book and a pen. So all this is there. Even though I'm holding the pen in my hand, okay, I'm still holding the different other items on the table or around me in my field.
Yeah, it's true.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
But how the whole exercise is here to inform us all as well anyway. It's like a kind of reinforcement is how I'm kind of experiencing it. It's like just reinforcing like the 90% that we don't see with our eyes. Like our eyes don't actually see anything. It's the brain is the seer, So it's like using that other part of the brain to receive information. And I love this exchange between us, like that we're able to kind of interact between like where we all are and different objects, and it really feels like it's getting our attention. But I feel like today I was thinking about this, and I felt that when I was on my walk and I was walking back, I was tuning into like, okay, what's going to happen, on this call, because I knew Sebastien wasn't coming because he messaged me just before I went out. And I really felt like it was like playful, and just everybody start working on this frequency or on this wavelength and have
Very
fun with
cool.
it, and then be informed by it, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah. That's what we just did.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's awesome.
It is awesome, isn't it?
So, what else are we going to talk about? It's 1:05, 5 minutes past the hour. We said it is a 2-hour event. Sorry, not event, but a 2-hour podcast. But we can make it a bit shorter since our guest is not around with us. I just want to, because we were going to talk with him about ETs and connections with that, I thought maybe we can just touch on that subject a bit before we head off for the day. Tanis, since you're the subject matter expert in extraterrestrial, and you mentioned Commander Ashtar,
Mm-hmm.
how did you get to know him first? Like, what happened? Did you dream it up? Did somebody tell you? No, it's just valid questions from people who are not exposed to this and they don't know how these things work. I just want to I would like us to inform them of what happens, and of course each one's experience would be different.
Of course.
We all walk on the same path down the street and we all see different people, and different buildings, although they're the same.
Yeah, exactly.
So
probably the best way to sort of describe it would be to start at sort of the beginning of my ET experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So the first time I had an interaction with an ET, I had a pain in my breast. And I had gone to the doctor because it was like it would go and it was quite sharp. So I was quite concerned about it. I went and made an appointment for a mammogram, and it was early on my journey. Like, I wasn't really aware at all. I had just maybe done Reiki 1 or 2 at this stage. And one night I woke up feeling like I had a vacuum here. And I went, and there was an ET standing beside my bed just for a second. And I looked at him. He looked startled that I was looking at him, and then he disappeared. And I was like, oh, that's a wild dream. Okay. And I rolled over and went back to sleep. Well, I never had any pain again.
Some people usually run out screaming, but no, you go to sleep. Okay, continue, please.
Well, I passed it off as a dream, right? Okay. Because I was like, oh, that was weird. Because it was only like a fraction of a second. Well, like a second that I maybe saw him, right? Anyway, I never had any pain again after that. There was nothing on the mammogram. Everything was clear. So that was my first instance with ETs. And I wasn't even really aware that that's what it was at that point. So then I was watching a show on Gaia called Interviews with Extradimensionals. It's with Ruben Langdon. And he was interviewing Adam Apollo, who is a galactic ambassador. And for some reason, I was totally enthralled with the show. And I had watched many of the others, which I do love because they're channelers. He's interviewing channelers who are channeling other beings, extra dimensionals. And but this particular one, like, I had to go and do an interview for one of my HR clients, and I like ran back because I was anxious to get back to see this. So I as I'm back at it again and I'm watching, all of a sudden the room filled with all of my guides. So some of them are ETs. So I had seen ETs and sort of tried to reconcile what they were and stuff. And it started, and they all came in and they're like, so are you ready? Are you ready? And I'm like, yes. Before I could even think about the yes, it came out of my mouth. And they are all like sending all this love at me. And I'm like crying in my basement because all this love is overwhelming. And I'm like, okay, they're happy. So must be good. I didn't really know what I was agreeing to. And afterwards I tuned in and they're like, oh yeah, because you're a galactic ambassador. I'm like, oh, okay, I don't know what that means and I don't know where that's going to take me, but okay. So I just resolved to be like open and curious, basically. And then I ended up with a download about a new healing modality called Nukti, which is Pleiadian energy. Went through all of that stuff. And then when I went to teach Nukti for the first time, we're sitting in class. This one here was in the class. And we took a little break and we're like, okay. And one of the other ones in the class had been shown a mudra. And she's like, I wasn't supposed to show it to you, but I've been doing the whole time. And I'm supposed to show it to you now. So we were getting ready to do the attunements for this. And so I said, okay. And the others were all off on their break. So I stop and I'm like, okay, I do the mudra. I close my eyes to feel what I'm feeling. Next thing I know, I'm standing in front of Commander Ashtar and another commander. And I can tell there's all these people behind me, or beings behind me. And he does this, and I go down on one knee, and he does this like knighting ceremony thing. Then he helps me. Well, he does this, like, so I stand up. And this isn't in physical, right? This is consciousness, much like what we were doing with the remote viewing. And he then puts his hand on my chest, and he says, you are now one of us. So it was like an initiation as a galactic ambassador. What I didn't know was that I was being initiated as a galactic ambassador and a galactic teacher. So I didn't know that till after. But again, all this love was beaming at me. So I'm sitting here, they come back from break, and I've got tears streaming down my face, and they're like, what's going on? I'm like, it's okay, I'll tell you when I get back. So that was kind of my first introduction to Commander Ashtar. And then I've been pulled, like he's asked me to come and speak to him, and I end up seeing him in like a, it looks like a command, like Star Trek kind of looking thing. Because, you know, that stuff comes from somewhere, right? Somebody else who's been on a ship. And he'll pull out tea, and we'll sit at this table, like it's like a little boardroom table that's in like the command center, and have a chat. And then I've also channeled him so that he's been able to speak through me as well. So that's kind of how that started, was with that whole sort of process. And at first I had a little trouble believing all of that stuff, but then I was telling a friend about what I look like in the astral. So I look very different than kind of different than I do now. And I was telling her how I wear this green dress and all that. And she's like, I've seen you. I'm like, really? She said, yeah, you were having some knighting ceremony or something up on this stage. And there were these two guys, and she described the two commanders. And I was like, you were there? She's like, yeah, you were up on like this thing. It's like, no way. So I realized that maybe I wasn't crazy. And then I've had visitations since with, I had a delegation of praying mantis in my backyard, not in the physical, folks, don't freak out. But in my backyard a couple of years ago, they came to talk. And then I ended up as a galactic ambassador with the Alliance for Extraterrestrial Diplomatic Contact, which is actually an organization in the 3D that their mandate is to build an embassy for diplomatic discussions with ETs. And they're working behind the scenes to get some changes made to the Geneva Convention to allow for peaceful contact and stuff like that. So yeah, I found myself put in front of the people that I needed to be in front of to end up in that organization. And I'm part of the leadership team now. And yeah. So wow. That's
also
my story.
That day I saw you, they were giving you a medal.
Yeah.
If you remember.
Do you know what the medal was? It was a protection thing over my heart, because somebody else saw that as well.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So I experienced it as him doing this, but it was like a medal.
While she was crying, no, or after crying, I can't remember, but we didn't know what was happening. And I got this vision.
Yeah. Oh, you've never told me this.
Pardon?
You've never told me this.
Yeah, I told you. You went crying again.
Oh, did I? Oh, okay. I do that a lot, folks. Just
So it's an interesting story. Other than seeing an ET and going back to sleep, which is like a bit a bit scary, but
so can I explain why I didn't find it scary?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I think so. It was one of my ET guides, Rigus, who was an Arcturian, and so I think my body knew who he was. So that's why I did not have a fear response, because in the astral, I've probably been working with him all my life. So I didn't know who it was in this brain, but everything else knew who he was and knew he was safe.
Yeah. It's the same thing with my experience. Well, I had the experience with you, and I had a similar experience with Sebastien while reading the book. It's like there's this feeling or emotion that just rises. It's like, yeah, I know you, we know each other for a long time.
Yeah.
And when I felt that, I go, oh my God, he's an avatar. And it's just like, and it's just like, it all came into place, and I was able to see it all, which is, if you read this book or you're reading his book, I don't want to ruin it for you, but the movie Avatar is extremely similar to the experience that he had, which is what I was able to see and experience too. And the same thing with you is that I saw that knighting or whatever it was called, or medal giving. I was there. I felt it. I saw it, and then of course we were all present physically while this thing was happening, but we're all transported a different, like, split of a second. It feels like it's hours, but it's literally split of a second when it happens.
Yeah.
So when you read things or you hear people talking about like going on journeys and a couple of years and stuff like that, it is a split of a second in our time. So you close your eyes and you get transported. And I'm going to say that what do you call it? I forgot the term that came up with. Involuntary transportation, because you don't know. It's not like you're gonna say, oh, let me go see what happens. It's just, it happens.
Yeah,
it just happens. And when things when I was started to do the mediumship, I had those things that were happening without any warning per se. It's just like, it's now, kaboom, and I'm out and I'm back in, and I had to see what I had to see and bring it back.
So that happened as well for, so that's when I talk about being pulled. That's what I mean by that. And so it's kind of funny because for a conference last year for the Alliance, they said, can you ask the ETs if they'll come and actually show themselves at the conference? And so I went into meditation and I'm like, okay, guys, let me know whether you want to come, and you can use my computer, whatever you need to do. And then I just forgot about it. Next thing I know, one day I'm sitting here and I'm being really pulled. So I just close my eyes and I end up being pulled into this meeting room. And the Pleiadians are on one side and the Arcturians were on the other. And the Pleiadians are, can we go? Can we go down? Let's go down. Are you ready? Are they ready? And the Arcturians are like, we have a process for this. We have to follow the process. We don't want to interfere with their process. We have to not create fear. And then they both look at me. So, are you ready? Is everybody ready? And I said, well, I'm ready. I don't know about the rest of them. You need to check with your other ambassadors too. I'm ready. And they're like, oh, and they kind of laughed. And next thing I knew, I was back in my chair. So they called me in. Apparently it's the Humanities Council, and they were checking in about my request. Needless to say, we aren't ready. So they did not come down to our conference.
Suzi, you had a question, or you have a question?
I have about 20,000 questions when you're talking, because this is so outside of my wheelhouse. It's so beyond me. I'm absolutely willing to accept when people share an experience with me who am I to say whether you had it or you didn't have it, or I'm very respectful of another person's experience. And but I have, my curiosity is about, like, when we were doing our own sort of training, when we were refining our own gifts, one of the things that we did early on was, she was pointing out whether if we had an interest, like I had an interest in art. And so my subconscious mind has lots of imprints of artists and, movements and paintings and things like that. And I am quite visual. And so she was saying to me, a lot of the information I will get when I'm reading for somebody is going to use that information that's already in my subconscious mind, to kind of relay the message. And I'm just curious, Tanis, like, had you watched like a lot of Star Wars and Trekkie stuff? And I don't know, like, I don't watch any of that stuff. I haven't a clue. Like, I've never seen Star Wars. I've never seen any of that. I have
Don't say that on the show.
I have no references whatsoever. So I don't think I could have that experience, because I don't have a pool of resources to draw from. And I'm curious, did you, or, is what I'm saying not relevant at all?
So I have watched those movies, right? But it was never, I would not say that I was overly into that stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was in my memory bank, probably because I did watch, Star Wars and all those things. But I've also had past lives as ETs. So I was Pleiadian, I was Arcturian, I was Procyon at one point. There's possibly Lyran as well. So I've had other lifetimes. So they're drawing on the stuff that's in my soul DNA as well, the memory from past lives as well. But
did you go, once you had your experience then, and it obviously was very moving for you, and like, it's very reassuring when it's being witnessed by others as well, I'm sure for your own sanity. And
yes, definitely.
I get that. Yeah, there's a validation in that, of course. But I'm curious about when also you had to start piecing this information together, doesn't it? Like, you're probably channeling a lot and you're probably getting a big download or something. But did you then have to go and do like copious amounts of research to know who's who, and how this is all like structured, and what's the difference between a Pleiadian and the other type? Why do they have different names? Who named them? Where do the names come from? I could keep going with the questions, but did you have to research that, or how can you?
I think it was more of a claircognizance thing.
Okay, it just was. You became knowing of it, like you.
Yeah, like, I mean, I have watched some stuff, just sort of, but it as I'm watching it, it almost feels like a confirmation more than an education kind of thing.
But Star Trek characters are not. And I said, sorry, I laughed a bit, but I love Star Trek. I love it. I
love Deanna Troi.
Pardon?
I always loved Deanna Troi. I
yes,
wonder why. I did not know at the time that I was an empath as well. But
the characters that they have in the movies are not the same as what people describe these days. They're totally different.
There are some that are like them. There are some that are like them.
Yes, but you can't say, oh well, he's an Arcturian, or that's what it was called in Star Trek. It wasn't.
No. That's why that information must come from somewhere else as well.
So I'm sure Star Trek was based on some kind of an opening for someone to get the information on how to create and what to do with these things. And I know at the end they went into the cyborg thing and what do you call it? I can't remember their names. 7 of 9. She's my favorite, but
and I wonder why. Yeah, Borg, the Borg,
the Borg, and the Queen, and so on and so forth. So they went even further with that. But even Kaylee loved her.
That was Deanna, just for the record.
Oh, okay. So Star Trek was totally different than what we see, like what I experienced with you,
Yeah.
what I experienced, but it's not like I've experienced ET on my own to say, oh, I've seen them. And I know Kaylee is saying that she did see that, and she ended up to see that twice.
Yeah.
2 times, and they were similar. So you had those experiences. You had this. I never had this experiences. Other experiencing through someone else. You know.
Mhm.
So the other thing that I found out about myself was that, so we have a monad, which is where our soul energy comes from. It's like our soul DNA, soul connection, as opposed to our physical DNA. And so I found out that I'm a hybrid. So my energy comes from the Pleiades and from angelic. So I'm a hybrid of those two. And so I think that's where some of that past memory comes from. It's actually like in the DNA. And then I've also had these other lifetimes that have sort of reinforced some of that stuff. So
And
there's
can
many
I
layers.
ask you, so was it very life affirming for you, Tanis? You know, was it like finally you got the last piece of the puzzle, or like a significant piece of the puzzle? And did it sort of concretize your path then, or where you were, the direction that you started to go in, like, you know?
Yeah, I think that's been a gradual thing, because it was like that was never where I thought I would be doing is galactic stuff. That was not my, when I first started into all of this, it's the healing path. That was, you know, the Reikis, the shamanic stuff. That was all my sort of passion. And I mean, I'm definitely combining it all now, because there's a lot, basically it's a galactic healing thing, right? That's where my galactic shaman program is going to be coming from. So I would say it's life affirming, just in that some of the memories that I had during that spiritual journey became like, I'm not going crazy kind of thing. Because one of the first ones that I had was, it was like first person, and I was looking down at my hands, and it was like I had 3 fingers. They were this long, and the thumb, and they were long and they were blue. And I was like,
Wow.
and I remember going like this in the visual, going, well, that's different. And looking around and seeing that I was on like a spaceship. I was tending some plants, like they were in like these big clear egg-shaped things, and it looked like little mini fir trees that I was tending to. And then I looked around the room, and that was in like, there was a table of a bunch of them. And then I looked across, and there was like an opening in the wall, and a sort of a hallway, and a window that was looking out into space. And so that was one of my early visuals of it. And I thought, wow, what's that about? And realized that was like a past life thing. So they were bringing some of that stuff back for me to remember in, you know, bite-sized pieces, so that I wasn't like overwhelmed with it all. So affirming, I definitely feel I'm on the right path, because there's no way I would have ended up with the Alliance the way I did. Because it was like, I was talking about channeling to a friend of mine who is not involved in any of that stuff. And he happened to say, and the whole time I'm telling him this stuff about the channeling and channeling Commander Ashtar, he's like, I'm thinking, my God, why am I telling him this? He's going to think I'm crazy. And then he says to me, well, I have a friend who's doing an ET convention. Do you want me to introduce you to him? And I was like, yes. And it turned out to be the VP of the Alliance.
Wow.
So these things have just shown up in my path. So you know that, like, this is nothing that I've gone out to try and step into in any way. It's really just kind of shown up as it was meant to. So in that way, I suppose it is affirming, because I know that that stuff doesn't happen unless it's meant to.
Yeah. Yeah. And I suppose it's very reassuring when people with similar experiences can find each other. It's like it's all these different kind of paths that you could. There's so many. I think that was the message we got the other day, Ramzi, when we tuned in. I have it here. It's like there's a very predictable path, and then there's the kind of path less taken. but they're all taking you to the same kind of ultimate destination. Like, so, you know, I suppose you'll find who's on your path when you say yes to it, like, and they just keep showing up, don't they?
They do. I mean, the other interesting thing, which is pretty cool, is that I started a podcast for the Alliance, Bridge to the Galaxy, and of course my own as well, Twillo Talk. And I've met Adam Apollo and Ruben Langdon, who were both on that show that's who was on the show when they all came in and asked me if I was ready. And I've now interviewed both of them for the 2 different shows. And so it's pretty, like, how would that happen? You know?
Yeah.
Why would that happen? So the fact that all of this has just fallen into place, that's the affirmation I get. Not so much that I was meant to do it in terms of my own consciousness, I guess, if that makes sense. It's more I'm just led there.
You have to look, if you look at our journey, the 3 of us, it's out of the blue. We end up in the same space, and we move forward with it, and it expands.
Yep.
Every time we move forward, we expand, we add new things, we do new stuff. We actually grow.
Yeah. I think that's it ultimately. Like, you know, if you had told me, like, when I was, you know, starting off teaching meditation and yoga and Ayurveda like 10 years ago, that we'd end up having this conversation, I would have been running in the other direction, you know, because of the level of fear of the unknown that I had in my system, like, and that's all where it's all just coming from. But I think as I've been, you know, in my own sort of journey and, you know, stabilizing myself energetically and healing myself and, you know, expanding my mind as well, I think, you know, that fear, like, I don't have much that I'm afraid of anymore. Like, you know what I mean? I'm kind of ready for anything. I feel like, come on, let's do it, you know?
Well, and I think that's why they bring things in as they do, right? Which on a micro scale, each of us have had tidbits of information at the right times for us to be able to step into belief and trust, right?
Yeah.
And that is kind of what they're doing with the Galactic Federation in that meeting that I was called into, right? The process is about giving humans bite-sized pieces so that they can step into belief before they actually come and stand in front of you. So I'm not saying that I haven't had fear along the way, because when those praying mantis showed up in my backyard, I was like, Michael, Archangel Michael, come and be with me.
Yeah.
You know, but then you have the experience and you're like, okay, well, that was good. So it's having the experiences, I think, that is part of the process, and the value, it brings value.
And is the ultimate sort of objective of this alliance to help humanity?
Yeah, it's about us bringing love. Yeah, Bella, you did have a bit of a shocking one for sure.
You gotta hold those.
Yeah, some people get them all at once, depending on what's happening, right? If they need the information all at once. So I forget what I was going to say now.
So I believe all of these things are sprouting out today. It is for the evolution of human consciousness.
Yeah. Oh,
You know?
yeah, that's it. We have to step into love, right? Before the ETs are going to come down. So that prime directive is for all of spiritual organizations. And so we all have that prime goal of creating love and harmony on the earth. So I don't know anybody that wouldn't like buy into that piece, right?
Oh, well, debatable, but yes.
But they would in theory anyway. They're not always in practice because they don't realize, but in theory, most people would do that.
So does anybody have any questions across the platforms regarding ET, phone home?
Easy phone home. Avatar was an interesting movie for me to watch. So this is how you know you have a real cellular memory of stuff. So I watched the first one and I was somewhat emotional. I watched the second one and there's a part at the end that's a little bit rough anyway. I don't want to spoil it for you guys, but I couldn't stop crying after that. It was like that just opened a tap and I cried all the way home. Wow. I said to my husband, I want to go home. He said, we're on our way. I said, no, I want to go home.
Wow.
And it was like a hole, and it was like a sobbing cellular, like I missed being there. So that's when you know that there's something to this stuff, like, because that came from nowhere, really.
And just a quick one. Oh no, here. Sorry, I missed it. So glad I made it today. By the way, it is on YouTube. You can find it on my YouTube, Twillo Lifestyle YouTube. So if you missed it, you can go listen to it. So, but please do like and subscribe so that you can get notification when we do these events, so that you don't miss them. I don't want anybody to miss any. I
think she missed us.
Pardon?
She missed us.
Oh, I miss you guys. Sorry, I thought she missed part of it, but for the ones who did not miss us a lot, you can always find us on YouTube. But do join us tomorrow afternoon, 7 p.m. It's early evening, 7 p.m. for Open Mic North America. Hey, yes, I missed you guys. I missed you too. I think I can do this, can't I?
Well, I can do this, but you have the magic computer.
Yeah, I know, but it's not working.
Oh, yeah. And the hearts appear.
Yeah.
Oh, here
you go.
That blows
his computer's magic.
Yeah.
God be with Apple.
So
can I just quickly ask, Janice, have you met James Cameron?
Not yet.
He's from Ontario.
Yeah, not yet.
Because I wonder.
He's on my I would love to meet him list, because I would love to interview him for Bridge to the Galaxy.
Because I was watching something that he made about whales, I think it was, and I was fascinated, and I was like, who is this person with this vision, and then I realized, like, he has had the most awards, he's had the biggest grossing movies of, I was like, oh my God, he's a massively big deal, and then I saw that he was like, that Avatar is actually one of the, is it the highest grossing film of all time or something like that?
Yeah.
And it's just like, again, I'm sorry, put my hand up, full disclosure, I've never seen Avatar either. Or The Matrix.
Beautiful.
I keep saying I'm going to watch these movies because people reference them all the time, and I don't know, I'm just like I'm a rom-com girl. So, and maybe they're just too long, or I don't know why I never get into things like that. But I was wondering, like, the fact that it is such a hugely grossing film, and it's this vision of, like, he clearly is a visionary, and the creativity, like, you're tapping into some serious creativity, especially even bringing the technology to create something like that. Like, I've seen clips of it, obviously, I have some kind of a rough idea. I don't know the storyline, but visually, like that's a lot to bring in, and I'm just fascinated that it's one of the highest grossing movies. So that the amount of people who've seen it and are being, that it's leaving this lasting impression on them. And now all of these people are having these conversations through, people like you, and
Well, Reuben Langdon was actually a stunt double for one of
the
ETs in that movie, and so we chatted a little bit about that on our Twillo talk, and he said that James or Jim was very, very, very much a stickler for detail. Like, he told a story about how he was, so you don't actually see him because it's the computer generated, right? But they have to actually act the piece in the suits or whatever, and then they record that, right? And so I guess he tells a story about how James gave him a knife and said, you need to work with this knife until it's like it's something you use every day, like part of you kind of thing. And so that was one of his pieces. So James Cameron had a very, very specific, very detailed view of what he wanted to create with this movie in terms of, the specific ways people would move, how that is all interpreted, how how all of his visions came to life. And so I'm sure that as a society, we pick up on those subtleties. And I'm sure that this is coming from visions, right? That he's gotten this
coming from somewhere,
past life visions or current life visions where he's tapped into these things and had very vivid visuals on these and how to create them. If he hasn't been like directly guided, like consciously guided, he's definitely been subconsciously guided to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
I was thinking that when I was like just reading that information, I thought, wow, like the beauty here is that it's working with us anyway, whether we're conscious of it or not, like you just said, isn't it?
Well, and all of this stuff is, you can tell that it's permeating into our society more and more. Okay. Yeah. Because once IKEA starts carrying ET toys with UFOs, you know that it's permeated into the society. They now have ET toys. They have little green aliens.
Really?
And, yeah. I of course bought them, but but they have like a UFO. It's like this big. Well, actually, Kaylee got them for me because she was at IKEA. But it's like this big, and it's zippers, and you can actually put this little ET guy in the spaceship and fly the spaceship around.
Wow.
Mine, I just have it sitting, but the point is that it's actually, once it starts getting into like kids' toys.
Yeah.
It's, that it's starting to become mainstream. Like if parents are actually buying those things for their toys, it's more acceptable.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because toys become a way for us to rehearse real life. And so we're rehearsing all of that with things like that. Oh yeah, Bella, they're so cute. They're so cute. Yes, that's awesome. Yeah. So do I need to go and get mine to show you? Because I could. They're just
sure you can do that.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, I'll be back. Talk amongst yourselves. I'll be right back.
It's interesting though. I like the influence of that kind of pop culture and movies and conversations. Like we're all influencing the field essentially. Like, and there's a huge amount of stuff going on in the world that I'm definitely not loving at the moment, but I'm not focused on that. Like all of us would say, we're not watching the news every day and buying into that fear mongering kind of, and we're all wanting to move in the direction of love and compassion. Ultimately, like that's what we're all. That's my MO anyway. Like I don't know about you, Ramzi.
Same here. We're both doing the same thing. We're trying to awaken people to their true self.
Yeah.
Okay, so she came. Let me change this, and I'll put you here. Now you have a bigger screen.
So this is the coolest. Look.
Oh wow, it's big.
Yeah. Yep. And when you open it, there's like a little zipper here, so you can open it. And there's even like a little control panel inside. And the other thing that's interesting, the toys look friendly.
Yeah.
Right? They're not filling you with fear.
Yes.
As the normal narrative. Right?
Yeah. Stuff.
Beautiful.
So
does he fit in there?
He does. Yep. He fits in. He's in there.
Wow. And you can just fling him like a frisbee.
You could. And you've got the little lights on the bottom, you know.
Wow.
So
Like, I love that they sat down and designed that, like that they sat down and they
yeah,
consciously created that. Brilliant.
to me that really shows. I mean, I even brought it to my alliance meeting because I'm like, this shows progress. I know it's a toy, but it's like it is progress. If you're starting to sell those things and they are beautiful. Oh, they had animal astronauts and spaceships too. Oh, cool. Yeah, when you're starting to sell that kind of stuff to children and the parents are buying them, look how much more loving we are towards the idea.
Yes. Yeah.
But there's also you're allowing the child to go into an imaginary realm,
Yes.
to expand their horizon, to be able to see more, rather than being limited to my four walls, if you want to call them. You know,
Conforming. Yeah.
yes. So you're giving that opportunity for the child for his imagination to go wild.
Yeah.
Well, and you're also telling those kids that are having past life memories, because the kids are coming in with memory now. And so you're telling those kids that it's okay.
Yeah.
They think it's their imagination, which is fine, but it's acceptable for them to talk about it. It's because of things like this.
Yeah.
And so I was really excited about it. I just thought it was, it has such a big society influence or ramifications to it, or, you know, intention it gives society inspiration to step into that and be okay with it.
And I think we really have to start moving our consciousness to start really thinking outside the box, to come to those creative solutions for some of the stuff that's not going very well over here, you know, some of the challenges that we're having, and, you know, it's trying to get our attention. And I think, you know, the young kids, you know, if we don't limit them and, you know, cut them off, like at that point where they have these incredible imaginations and the capacity for so much information and learning and expression, and listen to them. You know, I always say to people, the kid knows, just ask him, like, you know what I mean? It's, you know how we've all been kind of brainwashed a certain way, or culturally kind of conditioned, and it's really about breaking, like for us, like for me, I was a late bloomer, breaking free of a lot of that conditioning, you know, in my late 30s, maybe early 40s, but like, you know, like, what a shame what happens when you really nurture that with young kids. And
I think beautiful stuff will happen.
Yeah, because you're removing fear and allowing love to surface, period. You know, for a child, it doesn't matter the color, the shape, or whatever it is. As long as they're moving and they love each other, they're okay with it.
Yeah.
You don't teach a child to love. You teach a child to hate.
Yeah.
You know? So by removing all the obstacle, you're just making the child flourish with all the beautiful stuff that they come with.
Yeah. And like that remembering isn't getting kind of knocked out of them at an early age, like, you know, so you just hear that story over and over and over of people of our generation who, you know, had capacity to see what other people couldn't see or hear, or whatever gift they had, but like the fear of, like, no, you cannot have that expression, you cannot say that in here, you cannot, you know, like, shut it down, you know what I mean? And but now we're that, I think that's the change that's happening, isn't it? I think
as a society. And it's beautiful. I mean, like you, I was a late bloomer. I had blocked all of it out until I was I would say probably almost 40 as well. It would have been like maybe 38, 39, but I wasn't aware at all. Very 3D, very much in, like, you know, healthcare management and all of that. Not cooking all that well, but I was very much in that life and not knowing why. things were difficult for me because it wasn't what I was meant to be doing.
Yeah.
It's not why I was here. So.
Cool.
All right, ladies. We're coming to an end of our event, of our podcast. Suzi, you want to say something about the next episode? Although we talked about it like there's no tomorrow, but you want to talk about the Spirit Cafe next time we have it?
Yeah, cool. It's on the 29th of June, which is Saturday. And everybody is welcome to join. If you want to join and take part in the experiment, just give us a message. You can email us through the website, which Ramzi's got on the band below there, or just get in touch with us through social media, and we'll give you a little briefing on what we're doing in terms of that experiment, and you can take part. But you can also just join anyway, and just see. Like, I think people are usually quite flabbergasted initially when they see how much information they are picking up all of the time, but when you start to really put your attention on it and focus it, it's like it's one of our, it's a natural gift that everybody has. And I think that's one of the other things that will make the changes that we need to see in the world, when we really start to appreciate and express ourselves using all of those other gifts that we have, for ways of communicating and seeing. So join us 29th on, what's the time of it, Ramzi?
12, is it? Oh God, I think it's noon. It's 5 o'clock your time, right?
Yeah, it's 5 mine.
Noon,
That's noon
Eastern Standard, yes.
Nine
Sorry, we do get confused with the timing because we work on a 3 different time spans between Ireland Eastern Time and Western Canada Pacific Time. So sometimes we miss the hours. Okay, thank you, Suzi. Tanis, do you have anything coming up soon at the Twillo Lifestyle?
We do. So we have Twillo Talk every Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern, which is a lot of fun. We have some big guests that I'm working on bringing in. And I have a Reiki 1 online class coming up in the next month, I guess. It's not this month, it's next month. Working towards getting a galactic shaman class up and running, a program. It'll be like a year program or more, depending on what they tell me, to be able to do healing work and journey work, to much like what we were describing, doing the remote viewing stuff with the ETs and working with them. And what else have we got going on? Well, we have our thing tomorrow night.
Yes,
we have open mic tomorrow night for North America, and so that's pretty much what's happening for me, other than my usual everyday, stuff, clients and whatnot.
And for me, I want to thank everybody. Oh, also, what I was going to say is that Suzi and I were having a retreat in the UK, most probably somewhere up north of England, north of London, in November. So there's more to come. It's still in the field. We haven't brought it down on a piece of paper yet.
Exactly. It's coming. It'll be here in maybe September. We'll get some more details.
Just to let you know, there are a lot of things that are happening in the background for everybody. So stay in touch with us, either directly through YouTube. Please subscribe and like and subscribe. It's the subscription that gives you the notification. So subscribe is very important. And also you can find us on Twillo Lifestyle for Tanis. For us, you have the Spirit Cafe. If you're interested in meditation and stuff, you can check out Suzi's website, wakeuplittlesuzi.com. Love the name. Seriously.
So cute.
I think it's awesome.
Awesome.
And once we reschedule with Sebastien Martin, we'll let you know, and we'll have a 2-hour special. We won't change anything else in our schedule, but we'll let you know when it's going to be. And with that, I thank you all
Thanks,
for being
Ramzi.
with us. Thank you, and wishing you a happy afternoon, evening, and well, it's not morning anymore in the West, but happy day.